The only item on the agenda today is a presentation of a new park and rec initiative, the Peoria Mountain Open Space and River Ecosystem Division. For that presentation, I will now turn it over to Deputy City Manager Kevin Burke and Parks and Recreational Director Chris Calcaterra.
Very good. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thanks for your time this evening. Again, I wanted to introduce Chris Calcaterra. He's been my knowledge base on this item, the fact checker, the detail keeper, and he will absolutely help me with any challenging questions you might have. So the reason for tonight's presentation was very much that we have a transaction that's going to occur in the next 12 months that's really been building for the last 2 decades. And we're very excited about it. And it's sizable enough for us to really take stock of our existing structure and purposes within the Parks and Recreation Department and propose something new. And that new is a division called Mountains, Open Space, and River Ecosystems, or MORE, which is the acronym we've come to like. So let's jump in with this. First and foremost, not all recreational opportunities occur in our developed parks. That seems to get a lot of the attention, but in reality, we have a very active hiking community, mountain biking community, we have trail runners, we have vocal folks around preservation, we have an interest in off-road vehicles, cultural resources. All of these interests occur in Peoria, and they happen in our mountain parks, our open spaces, and our river ecosystems. So, to that extent, what a lot of people don't know is that that foundation already exists in the city of Peoria. We have 4 mountain parks that include Calderwood Butte at 77 acres, East Wing Mountain at almost 400 acres, Sunrise Mountain another 300, West Wing Mountain 322. That's 1,109 acres. Within that, we have over 50 miles of trails. That's a really important item. But 1,100 acres is nothing to sneeze at. In comparison, New York Central Park's only 843. So it gives you an idea of something that we think of as very big. This mass of land is even bigger, and it's right here in Peoria. But that's not all. We've got more. And get used to that. I'm going to use that punchline a couple times. Did you know that Peoria has 3 river ecosystems? Agua Fria, which is 273 acres of managed land within the city of Peoria. New River, almost another 300 acres of managed property and trails. And then Skunk Creek, 55 acres. Now this stretches over 20 miles from north to south, and it really transverses our city. You can see that Agua Fria in blue there covers a good part of our city from north to south, whereas New River is almost the entire boundary from north to south, with Skunk Creek being a nice spur right in our entertainment district. So these are big areas that cover a large part of the city. Add to that, because we've got more, add to that desert open spaces. A lot of attention is given to Paloma Park, the community park. What people don't realize is that immediately adjacent to Paloma Park is 1,855 acres of the Paloma Preserve. This is a huge effort and element of our preservation, looking at that size of footprint. Go across the street of Lake Pleasant Parkway, there's another 160 acres that Peoria leased from the Bureau of Land Management. That was actually intended to be the location for a community park in northern Peoria before Paloma was sited, but that is still under contract with us for recreational purposes in that area. Add to that 20 acres in the Palo Verde Cultural Site. People may be familiar with the Palo Verde Park. Again, right behind it, we have 20 acres of land dedicated to Native American artifacts and archaeology. There's trails, there's signs, there's educational programs that are going on right in that area, right inside the city limits. Lastly, utility corridors. We have 98 acres associated with utility corridors. Not all of those have been developed, but we have agreements with the utilities to access different parts of those. And those are really valuable because those provide east-west axes of recreational activities across the city of Peoria as well. So that's really important. I mean, we've got 2,133 acres of open space. It's important because a lot of people think state land is open space, when really not until you get it into some sort of preserve or management element does it become that state. And that's what we've been doing with these efforts. So when you put those all together, that's 3,865 acres that are under some sort of Peoria management and control for our mountain parks, open space, and river ecosystem. But the whole point of this presentation is to tell you, we've got more. But before I do that, let me just check in with Chris and see if I missed anything in the first part before I hit the second part.
Thank you, Kevin. We do have more. As Kevin mentioned, Peoria planned well, and we have a solid foundation to build upon. We all should be very proud of the unique access to existing mountain parks, open space, and river ecosystems our community has to offer. Some of these lands are in multi-jurisdictional collaborative partnerships with BLM, Bureau of Land Management, Maricopa County, and the Maricopa County Flood District. Some are dedicated and some are owned. Either way, these lands are all part of the city's ecosystem thread throughout, providing opportunities for our residents to connect with the outdoors. Now that you are more familiar with our existing land aggregation, Kevin will take us through some extraordinary additional new opportunities.
All right, so on to the main event, which is that opened with the idea that we have a transaction that's set to occur that's been 2 decades in the making. And this is really the dedication of open space from a number of our northern development communities. Through some great planning and forethought 20 years ago, when development agreements were put in place for places like Estancia and Saddleback and Lake Pleasant Heights, there were requirements for open space creation. And as these developments are starting to reach maturity, that open space transfer is set to happen. So, Peoria's been very purposeful. The very first one I want to talk about is Estancia North. Within that development, they were required to dedicate a minimum or create a minimum of 900 acres of open space. Right now, they're anticipating it's probably going to be more like 1,500 to 2,000 acres that will be transferred, pardon me, to the city of Peoria. They're at 1,600 acres right now, and again, this is a transaction that we expect to happen in the next 12 months, if not sooner. I think they're ready. We just got to get our house in order, which is part of the reason that I'm in front of you tonight. Moving on to Lake Pleasant Heights, often known as Mystic, their development agreement requires a minimum of 1,350 acres. Again, right in that same area as Estancia and Saddleback, and we've got some fantastic footage we'll show you in just a minute. Add to that Alora Vita. Alora Vita is a little bit smaller dedication, minimum of 250 acres, but it plays a critical bridge role between our East Wing Mountain Preserve and our Sunrise Mountain Preserve. Really finishes off the bottoms of East Wing. We've got a wash in the middle that lends itself to the New River corridors. And then we've got the bottom of Sunrise Mountain, which is a fantastic place for a trailhead that is scheduled to go in that area. It's a small but important element. And then Saddleback. Saddleback's development agreement has a minimum of 600 acres in it. Talking with their developer, they expect to far exceed that number. Again, the issues of slope and just the way the plats lay out, there's a lot of land that doesn't end up making it into their original plans and becomes a great candidate for open space. So let's just take a moment here, and we've got some drone footage that kind of shows you this area and the value that it has in our community. Oh, thank you. So this is from the CAP looking north. And this is a ridgeline that's in Lake Pleasant Heights development area that is part of the open space to come. And then this is from Highway 74 looking south, and you can see that same corridor, Saddleback Heights, Mystic, Twin Buttes, and kind of those assets. So really some spectacular land that is coming our way, which is why we're so excited about this project. So I'll get the slides back up, and I've got just a few more to cover here. Great. So if you add together all those new developments and the acreage that is the minimum required in there, that's 3,800 new acres of land added to the 3,810 we already have. So we are literally doubling this asset. That's certainly sizable enough to look at this asset and say, we need to do some dedicated management to this program. And we want to be purposeful in what we're doing because this really does further the brand of Peoria as a quality place to live. So we looked at some other models. Scottsdale has a very robust model with the McDowell Mountain Preserves. Boulder, Colorado, I spent some years as a deputy city manager in Boulder. They've got a very robust open space, and their program is actually called Mountain Parks and Open Space. And then Phoenix has over 40,000 acres in their program. When you put all of those together and really look at it, it says the time is now to create a new division known as Mountains, Open Space, and River Ecosystems, more. And the idea is that we would turn this up in the FY26 budget, which is July 1, 2025. So here we are in October, getting you ready, thinking about it. Spring, we talk about budget. May, June, we adopt it, and July 1, we're off and running. The eventual staff is probably a manager, a volunteer coordinator, and a couple park rangers. I know that may seem thin for 7,600 acres of land, but that's pretty consistent with what we're seeing in our other peer organizations for running that. Because remember, you're not having to mow, you're not doing trees and landscaping, you're taking a natural area and keeping it natural, and so it's very much about the management of the activities that are going on within it. The other big item associated with the budget is going to be professional consulting. There's going to be requirements for surveys and inventories of assets and legal work associated with the transfer of land. There'll be trail planning elements associated with it. So all of that is an important part. And talking about trail planning and usage, the next element of this proposal is really heavily using the Parks and Recreation Board. And we have Christine Paz here, the chair of the board that we talked to the other night about. This is a citizen advisory board that's already in place that can help us with some of the challenging issues of what land gets used how. I will tell you, during my time in Boulder, everybody loved their open space, but there was a lot of disagreement of how to use it. Hey, dogs should be allowed here. No, dogs shouldn't be allowed here. Mountain bikes should be allowed here. Well, I'd like to have a trail without being run over by a mountain bike. I'd like to have an area that no humans touch at all. It's just for the wildlife. There's a lot of competing interests within that same open space. Having a citizen advisory board that can help us with those land use is going to be critically important, and the Parks and Recreation Board fits that bill. And the third part is this idea of partnering with a conservation trust. And that really is a great mechanism for donation amongst other things. And again, when we look at the successful models around the state and the country, they all have this partnership. The McDowell-Sonoran Conservancy works with the city of Scottsdale. Desert Foothills Land Trust, that's all around the Cave Creek Carefree area. White Tank Mountains Conservancy in Buckeye. And then just the Nature Conservancy from a federal standpoint, you've got these examples, and they're great mechanisms for people who want to donate land, but they're not so crazy about giving their land to the government. This way they can give it to a conservation trust where they might get some tax benefits, they might get some restrictions that they can place on it. And for a lot of them, it's very good when you have a family tract where the parents have aged, the children are not interested in continuing to farm or ranch that land, but they are interested in the revenues that could come from selling the land to development. These give you the opportunity to buy conservation easements that give that financial resources to the heirs, but keep the tract in the family's name. Those are great mechanisms for partnering and moving forward with this. Again, with the tax benefits and absentee landowners, we've been talking with some of these other folks. We see that where people have inherited a piece of land or come into a piece of land in Arizona and they've never even been in the state. This gives them an opportunity to place that into the trust because they keep getting the tax bill every year, but they sure like to have somebody else manage it and take care of it and figure out what they'll do another day. So this becomes a great mechanism for that. So you put it all together, and again, this is a proposal that we are bringing to you first and foremost for feedback tonight, and then second, moving on to a budget process in the spring. We've put some more information for those who are maybe watching on the streaming or just curious and hear about it later. We've got a white paper that kind of describes the whole thing that will be posted on the city's website, and we'll go from there. Chris has a few other items that we wanted to touch on before we wrap up, so I'll turn it back to him.
Fantastic. This is an exciting time for our city and the Parks and Recreation Department. I can't stress enough the opportunity to volunteer in this type of environment as we move forward. We have a robust volunteer commitment right now from our residents, really geared towards rivers and ecosystems and cleanups. So this is an opportunity for really to expand that program. And by way of this a future ask, this will be an opportunity for our residents and citizen activation across the entire city. So that is a robust piece of all these models that we looked at that are really winning models to look at across the country. I also want to stress that this is the beginning of the journey. We have current acres that we do manage, and I say loosely manage because it's existing, but it's really more of visual corridors. So we are excited really to put this at the forefront of the Parks and Rec Department. You can't build more land, and I think that's an opportunity that's something that we look forward to producing and managing in the near future. This is not a Parks and Rec Department initiative alone. You might think it is because it's green and has cacti on it and everything else, and it's beautiful. But believe it or not, the planning department, the IT department, GIS, there's a ton of people behind this presentation that really have made this impactful and will have to be participative to make it successful moving forward. I also want to just give a special thanks to some folks that really helped us out. We've taken a few drives out there, and we're in quads and everything else, and we've explored probably 2% of the area. And I look forward to the future as we get some more drone footage and more surveying of that area out there so we can help protect the areas and lands that we need to. We also developed some opportunities to really infographics. This is a quick way for public and candidly myself to look at something and understand it quickly and briefly. And here you'll see that we had some help with our, I want to give credit to Anthony Alejandro, who really led this project for ourselves. We had a team of internal folks get together and say, how do we want to message this? What does it look like when it hits the website and the public? This is a really quick way to explain what we have currently and what we anticipate in the near future. So to the left, you see the mountain parks at 1,100. The river corridors, 620, and then the open space at 2133. That's current. And then the new development that Kevin spoke about will be coming in at the 3,800. So by the numbers, Peoria will be 7,665 acres strong in the MORE program. I want to also, this is conservative. I think I've learned a lot from the planning department. 10% is of hillside ordinance. So there's some like to overestimate, like when you talk about your weight. So sometimes that comes back to reality and what we can or can't build on. So this number could potentially it's a conservative number. Oops. Also would like to, again, just to surely share, people like to use analogies or examples, and here's a really good opportunity. So mountain parks, this is the current mountain parks we have. Again, these are all in the system currently. So this is twice the size of Disneyland. So for the mountain biking community, this is their Disneyland. For the hiking community, this is their getaway. For families, this is their opportunity for the weekend outing. So Peoria currently has 1,100 acres and soon to grow larger. Also, our open space, currently we mentioned the areas. The most exciting thing about this for me, and David Burks will appreciate this conversation, but this comes without any water use, right? This is a very low use, high energy recreational opportunity. So this is a great way to explain to our residents and the community that this is how much 14 golf courses is how much we currently have in open space. And finally, our river corridors and ecosystems at 20 of State Farm Stadium. So when you drive by there, you'll visualize how many of those we can fit into our ecosystem and learn from. So these opportunities are outstanding for Peoria, and with that, we'd be happy to take any questions.
Well, as we talked about this a few weeks ago, I think the mountain biking community is going to be ecstatic over this. I mean, the trail system up there alone is going to be amazing. I know it's going to take a while. I know it's not an overnight thing, but I think this is, when you guys first brought this and as you guys have worked on it, it's pretty exciting for the city. So, Councilor Crawford. Councilmember Dunn.
I'm done.
Oh, you done?
I'm done. You're finished.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're next.
I'm next. Go ahead.
Hey, the slides where you did the comparisons and as we spoke before, very well done, and I think this is very, very much needed because we've had so much questions of our park and this open space and mountain and the preserves. This is, I don't know, other than to just say, great work, thank you. I appreciate all the work that you put into this because I know our citizens are really going to like seeing this in front of them. In fact, I'm going to include it in my newsletter because it's just a great visual for people. So thank you very much. I know it was a lot of hard work.
Councilmember Patena.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not done.
He's just finished.
So thank you for the presentation. This 3,800 acres, I'm assuming the city is going to take ownership of this property?
So the 3,800 is what's required to be created. In the Vistancia case, they are dedicating it to the city, so we will take ownership. With the other ones, they have to create it, if they choose to turn it over, we're still in discussions for us to manage it, but they must preserve and keep that acreage in some form or fashion and manage it accordingly. So it's a real advantage to turn it over to the city because there's legal liability that goes with maintaining these lands and people coming across those lands. There's certainly some maintenance elements to it. Again, the city is in a better position to take those responsibilities on, so it makes for a logical transition, but it's not a requirement in all cases. But it is the expected path, certainly for Vistancia and the others.
And a follow-up is, can this land be used for anything other than just open space?
The zoning keeps it as open space. I suppose there are paths that would require some sort of rezoning by the city council to move it into something different than the open space, but that's probably a question for the attorneys and the planners at my point. But from our standpoint, once it's in our inventory as open space, we plan to use it for recreational and preservation purposes.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Thank you, Mayor. I echo what my colleagues have said so far. Chris, Kevin, fantastic job, and it's so exciting. 7,600 acres, that's a lot of land. And when you talk about in your presentation, Central Park, McDowell Preserve, Boulder, Phoenix, at Disneyland and everything, I think of one thing, destination locations, that you travel to those places, right? And so therefore you're supporting the local economy with hotels or food or whatever. I actually have 3 other case studies or cities for you. St. George, Utah, Moab, Utah, and Prescott. You know, I think about St. George and Moab, Utah, sleepy little towns in southern Utah, but yet they integrated their jeeping, their mountain biking, their hiking, and now their economy just completely blew up over the last 10 years, and that's another great example of where they took open spaces and trails and parks and stuff like that and integrated them together. And actually, you know, Mayor was talking about the mountain bike community. Just this past weekend in St. George, Utah, they had the International Red Bull mountain biking race in St. George, Utah, but I didn't make it to that, but I wanted to. But no, he's absolutely right. Prescott, just 3 months ago, they built a gravity flow downhill park, and I was talking to their city manager at the League of Cities and Towns, and they said that their economy is tripled in 3 months since that opened. Wow. And, you know, I'm a prime example. I've never been to Prescott before, but in the last 3 months, I've been twice. So what you're talking about, I absolutely support it. 7,600 acres, really exciting. It's going to create destination location here in North Peoria, and it basically it's services for our city or our citizens. It's going to attract sports tourism to like what Mayor was talking about, and then it's going to make it a desirable place to live and travel to. So congratulations, gentlemen. Well done.
Thank you. And I think you're hitting on a key point, which is that, I mean, again, we need to be purposeful about how we manage this land, and that's why some kind of good planning to get this structured and up and running before we actually take custody of this new land is important, because this is not an overnight thing. We're not going to have this ready tomorrow. We've really got to move into this purposefully.
I'm sorry. Good. One advantage and one disadvantage is this land is not contiguous. So you think of some of the White Tank, mountains, the preservation, they're mostly contiguous. So those are opportunities for our residents to be able to access and connect rather quickly from the residents. But it also presents some challenges because of the distances and the operations of that land mass. So I think that's where we're excited about the planning portion of this. because it will take some time to stand up this department and really, our division, and have it be built for those user groups that do come to our Parks and Rec Board meeting and do show up to exemplify what they want to make the open space, the MORE program about, so.
So again, just to kind of repeat some of those things that everybody else is saying here. I told a story about a couple guys that I know that actually go to Scottsdale that are huge mountain bikers. Councilmember Schaefer and I actually talked about this about a week ago. His son is actually doing mountain biking, and they're traveling, right? It's become an actual, a larger sport across a lot from youth all the way to one of the guys I know is 76 years old, and he goes to Scottsdale once a week and mountain bikes with a group of mountain bikers over there. You know, as a destination location, the same thing, you look at Surprise, you know, and City Surprise is using their trail system in the White Tanks and actually doing you know, 36 and 100-mile runs, and they're doing them through the day and then into the night out there. And they're doing that like once a month. So you start to look at those things, that's something that could very easily be incorporated into this trail style system that you guys are putting together. So really, really appreciate all your work.